let's look ahead to the upcoming NBA draft. Obviously, to me, Chaz, this is one of the most unlike
You gotta hype it up.
un like I'm trying. Like this is probably one of the least exciting draft that that we've covered in a while. Like to be quite frank, to be quite honest with you, there's not really a lot of star power in this draft. There's upside for sure, in this draft that can contribute to, terrible teams that some probably that can contribute to, play-in teams, playoff teams. Um, Looking from your perspective, Chaz, the guru, this is our guru here of the NBA draft, everyone. What are some players that you're scouting that you're looking at that can make an immediate impact in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, first I'll say I think, a lot of people have been saying this is the worst draft class, in the past 10 years, past 20 years. I see that point because there's, like you said, there's no star. There's no Victor Wembanyama atop the draft. There's no, two or three guys. Like a few years ago, we had Paolo, Chet, and Jabari Smith, where you felt like all three of those guys, in whatever order they're going to be, they're all going to be very high quality NBA players. And that has been true, to start their career. There's not like a lot of sure things in this draft, but that's kind of why it's exciting to me. I think no matter who you are in this draft, you could find a steal. You could be the fifth spot or you could be 15th and you could end up with the best player in the draft. So that's kind of what makes this process so enjoyable for me is, trying to weed through all this and figure out who is going to be the best player. And it seems like the consensus is there are three guys atop the draft. Obviously Alexander Sarr, Zachary Risa-Sher, and then Donovan Clingan. It seems like those three guys are going to go one, two, three in any order. But
Can I be frank with you real quick?
yeah, of course.
Like, don't take my basketball card because trust me, y'all, I love the NBA. I study this stuff. I have no idea who any of those players are. I have no earthly idea
Not
who
of
any of those players. I don't know what school they go to. I have no idea. But Chad's about to break it down for us, ladies and gentlemen. This is why you got to get educated. Like you got to get educated about these things. So go ahead, Chaz.
Well, yeah, the Alexander Sarr guy that I mentioned, he's a Frenchman, as is Zachary Risa-Sher. It seems like those two guys are going to go in the top three. Sarr, he's been playing in the NBL, which is the top league in Australia. And he had a pretty good season last year, but he was coming off the bench for the most part. He's kind of the high upside swing, over 7 foot, huge wingspan. He can put the ball on the floor a little bit, play inside and outside. He kind of reminds me of a guy like Evan Mobley. I think he's going to be going. He has a great chance to go one, but probably at worst he's going to be three. Zachary Risa-Sher, like I said, he's another Frenchman. He's kind of the small forward. He's the only one of the top three that isn't a big, but he's kind of a slasher type. He can put the ball on the floor, kind of a 3-and-D type of guy. Reminds me of somebody like Kelly Oubre, can knock down a three, get stops on the defensive end, is going to add a lot. He doesn't really have the superstar upside. Maybe he will, in a couple years, but he's so young that it's hard to tell if that's going to come to fruition. And then the last guy that I mentioned was Donovan Clingan, the UConn center. At UConn for 2 years, he won the national championship both seasons there. Came off the bench in year one, and then last year he was one of the best big men in the entire country. It sounds like there are reports that are coming out that he has a chance to go number one to the Atlanta Hawks, but it seems like at worst he's going to go top three. So those seem like the top three guys to me. But like I said, it's so hard because this draft you can get the best player anywhere in the first round, in my opinion. Honestly, you could have a pick in the 20s and you could end up with the best player in the entire draft, depending on if you're able to hit on that and then what situation you have for him to come in. I think a guy can, come in and be an impact player immediately. The Atlanta Hawks have that top pick followed by the Washington Wizards and Houston Rockets. Those are the top three, and I think those are the three prospects that are going to go one, two, three. But you could tell me it'd be any order, and I wouldn't be surprised. So it's really hard to decipher who's going to be out of those top three. From that point on, the Spurs have the fourth pick and the eighth pick. So we're talking about a team with Victor Wembanyama, who, if they can add two quality players that can come in and immediately have an impact, then we're talking about a team that maybe can improve significantly in just one offseason. That's
Yeah.
going to be really, really hard to hit on both picks in the top 10. We see a lot of teams when they have two lottery picks like that. Usually one works out and then the other one they kind of take a chance on, more of a high upside guy. I'm interested to see what their strategy is. Another UConn guy, Stephon Castle, he can play both point guard and shooting guard. One of my favorite players in this draft. Just a ferocious defender, really versatile on the offensive end. I think he's a guy that if he goes to the Spurs, he would be a phenomenal fit alongside Wembanyama. But this draft it's so hard. A guy like Rob Dillingham, the Kentucky guard, one of my favorite players in the entire class. Just an absolute bucket getter. You know, I think to me he's the best pure scorer in this draft. But there are reports that he could fall out of the lottery. So I mean, it's so hard to decipher what this draft is going to look like. Ron Holland, a guy that played in the G League Ignite last year, averaged 20 points per game at 18, 19 years old. But the efficiency and the turnover problems are a concern, and they're talking about maybe he's going to fall out of the lottery as well. So, like I said, there are going to be teams below 15 outside of the lottery that I think are going to get steals. And I kind of equate that to a few years ago when the 76ers got a guy like Tyrese Maxey, I think with like the 21st overall pick. I mean, he was a guy that most people were talking about being more like a top 10 guy, but then throughout the pre-draft process, he fell, 10 slots or so, but he ends up being one of the best players in that draft. So I think there are a lot of teams in that range that are gonna get immediately impact players.
Who's your underrated player? Who's the player that a lot of people are not looking at, but you think can make some noise in the NBA?
There's a ton of guys that I think have that chance. One guy, Devin Carter, out of Providence, the Providence guard. I think he was phenomenal this year. He plays really hard. He's kind of a two-way guy. He's a good scorer, but just as good of a defender. I think he's going to go in the lottery. But if he ended up being one of the best players in the draft, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Dalton Connect, the Tennessee forward. I think he should go in the top probably 10 to 15. I think he's going to have a really good career. He's a solid player. It's a wide open draft. I mean, it's not loaded like we've seen in other drafts where there's 5 to 10 guys where you feel really good about them. You know that they're going to have good careers. But there's just a ton of guys that I think will have a good chance to do so. It just matters about where they land and are they going to be put in a position to have success.